Okay, awesome, Anthony. Gotta love those crime stories, little vignettes around the country. But listen, this Van Dyke trial, it's hot. Okay, there are so many great issues with this case. Again, the police versus the community with regard to a lot of these issues and a lot of these shootings. And you can't get any better than actually being in the courtroom, smelling it, tasting it, touching it, all the senses. We could watch it on TV all we want, but we are lucky that we have R.J. Mangone. He is at the Van Dyke trial. He's a Chicago-based attorney, and you're in court. How's it? What's the temperature in there? Is there a lot of tension? Is there a lot of police versus community activists there?
Well, there are very few community activists. Apparently, there were when they were doing jury selection, but since I've been here, very few people outside. There's a large police presence, but they've been friendly. Everyone's been very friendly. Nothing has gone on to raise any red flags or to worry anybody. As far as being in the courtroom, the jurors, everyone paying very close attention. Today was with the autopsy photos that got somewhat emotional.
Well, we're going to talk
really close attention to that.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the autopsy photos in a minute, but I want to go just back a little bit and flesh this out with respect to. I prosecuted a number of police officer cases, but one in particular. I was actually being shouted at by them as the prosecutor. It was a police-related shooting. Stared at, mocked. The cops were in force in the courtroom. Do you see a cop presence in that courtroom?
There's officers all over the place. However, there's none of that. It seems like a normal trial. There are more officers, but as far as attitude with the police, you wouldn't know one way or the other. Are those officers
there for purposes of protection, or are they in support of the defendant?
They're there for protection for everyone. That's what I was told. I actually asked a couple why they're there, and said to protect you. And I said, from what? And he actually said, just in general, which I found pretty interesting. But there's really nothing. We're up on the 5th floor, and there's no tension. There isn't anything. There was an interesting moment we can get to later to kind of raise the tension level in the courtroom. But no, it's been a really easy. It's been like a normal day of court, and I've been in this courthouse before.
I don't mean to suggest that the cops are causing a problem, but I'm just maybe I'm not getting it.
No, I totally understand.
Are there police supporters there that are not on duty? They're there supporting the cop.
And I understand that. Neither side.
Okay.
You would think this was just a regular day of court. I was very surprised.
Wow, that's fascinating. Let's go to his partner's testimony yesterday, if I understand that you were in there. Tell us, is he a cooperating witness? Was he helpful? Was he struggling? Was he trying to support his fellow officer? What was his temperament?
Well, he came in, he identified the defendant, which very easily, and I thought, well, maybe he's kind of mad that he was in this situation. And then he started to get visibly angry with each question that went on.
By whom? Question by whom?
On direct.
By the prosecutor?
Yes. So when he was being questioned with video, he was explaining that, no, the video did not show where he was. When they were actually showing him in the video, he said, that's not where I was. That's not my point of view. And you can't tell what I saw and from this angle, and he basically was trying to say it's distorted.
Did you find that the prosecution was surprised by that? Did they try to then call him as a hostile witness, to treat him as an adversarial witness?
I was surprised that they didn't, but I mean, he first came in, sat down, and introduced himself as Officer Walsh, and then he said former Officer Walsh. So I don't think, with what's going on in his career since this, I don't think that they felt the need. He did cooperate, but it was very reluctant. You can tell that there's still a bond there. I mean, when he was on cross seemed more like direct.
Yeah, well, a prosecutor never wants to see the defense attorney cross-examining a person like it's direct examination, because that means the prosecutor has got a rough witness on the stand from what you're saying. Two aspects of the court I want to get into. The autopsy photos. Now, we talk about this all the time because they're very powerful. Did the judge give an instruction to them about how they're supposed to use the autopsy photos, i.e., about how the death occurred, but not to be overly inflamed or impassioned by what they saw?
No, it would not in my presence, and I was in the courtroom, so open court said nothing. But you can tell it had an impact. And like I said yesterday, we've seen the shooting so many times. Some of the jurors have become seemingly desensitized to it. Well, today that was so far from the truth because it was graphic. I mean, there's a look of shock on the majority of the jurors' faces.
RJ, were you there for the opening statements in the case?
No, I was not, unfortunately, but I have seen them.
Yeah, okay. In the opening statement, just real quick, I think it may be one of my last questions I'm going to be able to ask you, but the defense made a big point about an unfolding quick situation, a person who was acting erratically, was on PCP, had a previous incident with a knife, wasn't listening to the officers, turned around. I was surprised they weren't going to say turned around in that quick spin and could have had a gun in his waistband. I thought that was going to be a definite, but the defense did not bring that up. But the defense then brought up the various ways that you are allowed to use lethal force in Illinois, which is not even when you're in fear of serious bodily injury or death, escaping felon with a weapon, things of that nature, where shooting a person would be justified. Did that come off positive for the defense? Was the jury listening to the multiple ways cops are allowed to use deadly force?
I think so, but I think it kind of fell on deaf ears just because, I hate to say, just because of the number of shots in this case. I don't think people understand that, one shot, I mean, you're supposed to basically neutralize the threat. So, I mean, there's two sides to the story. They see it, I think, based on head shaking, what I've seen in some of the testimony, is that it was overkill.
I don't know if you can see right now, but on our screen we have him exactly at the time where he's spinning around being shot. And we talk about overkill. I've gone through firearms training personally. I don't know where this mythology of like 3 shots, 7 shots, where that comes from. But, when you have a scenario like this, and I'm not justifying, I'm not saying what's going to happen, but you are trained to neutralize that threat. People are saying, why didn't they shoot him in the hand? Why don't they shoot him in the foot? That is not how they're trained. If they're trained that they believe that or if they're allowed to use lethal force, let's just put it that way, they have a right to neutralize, or in other words, kill that person. Whether they do it with 4 shots, 6 shots, 4.5 shots, 13.9 shots, or 16 shots is not part of their training.
And yesterday, Walsh actually said, and the video doesn't back him up, so far as I'm concerned, and the jurors kind of shook their head. He said that McDonald made a swinging motion with the knife towards him and Van Dyke. And so he said he felt threatened, and the big thing they had to do was neutralize the threat. However, that's when they started showing more of the video, and he just contradicted what was on the video.
Yeah, RJ, one of the things that they were talking about in terms of the openings was that they were worried about the fact that they no longer had a contained scenario and that he was not listening to commands. He was in a blanked expression, was walking towards a Dunkin' Donuts or the Burger King, I believe it's term.
Yeah, both. He walked by the Burger King, then towards the Dunkin' Donuts.
Right, and they were afraid he was going to go in there with that knife, which gets to that piece in the law that says escaping felon from a violent felony and or one who's armed, of which he was both, became part of the justification. Is that working at all in court?
Yeah, well, that's the prosecution kept saying, well, were there any people around? Were there any civilians around? Was anyone in danger? Do you think anyone was in danger? When they were talking, when they were examining Walsh, and he said he couldn't be sure, but he was trying to protect the people around him. It wasn't just the officers. They didn't want him to escape. That's why they said he was trying to cut him off to get to the Burger King. They couldn't do that. He ran away from the Burger King. Then they caught up with him eventually. But That's the big thing they keep coming back to, is that no one was in danger, at least the prosecution side. And
Well,
the implication is that there was a vehicle with a taser on its way, and if they had waited, they would have been fine. Walsh countered, basically was saying if he just listens and drops the knife, there's no problem. He's alive today.
well, let me ask you one last series of questions. In the case, the defense attorney brought out that he was in a secure area where there were trucks. He was breaking into the trucks trying to steal, I believe it was a radio. He's confronted by this gentleman. He pulls out this pretty ominous lock blade knife, which is a pretty significant knife. Tries to assault him twice while he's calling 911. He actually has to throw the phone at the guy. He runs away. Cops are in pursuit of him. Now what do the cops see? They see a guy is not following commands. He's walking away from them. He's walking down the middle of the street. He's not making eye contact. He's got the knife in his hand. He breaks the window of the police car at one point in time with the knife, punctures the police tire at another point in time. They got a Dunkin' Donuts and a Burger. I'm just putting it together if I were the defense attorney. A Dunkin' Donuts and a Burger King. When I say the defense attorney, like, in other words, why he did what he did.
Right.
And are they supposed to be there dancing on the head of a pin? Taser unit will be there in 13.6 seconds. Oh, wait a minute. He may run in there, but, well, what's the biggie? If he runs in there and stabs a couple of people, the taser unit will be there, and they can tase the guy. I mean, is there that sensibility that this thing is unfolding so quick they didn't have an opportunity to wait for the taser unit and wait to see what he was going to do next?
Well, on cross, it came right out and said, well, how much time did you feel you had, why didn't you shoot? They were asking Wall. And he said, well, I got out first, and then my partner got out, and he fired the first shot, startled me, and then fired and neutralized the threat. And that was the big point, neutralizing the threat. And the threat wasn't just to the officers.
You make a great point, RJ. I think in the end analysis, you do have nobody else shot. There are 16 shots that inures to the opposite of the questions I asked. You're doing a great job. We appreciate you being there. We'll be back with you shortly. Thank you.
Sounds good.